Have you ever written an HLSL shader?
Yes.
Amazing. That's number. That will be 6 then. All right. I just asked this question because we will cover some in this workshop. So, yeah. So the motivation. Have anyone used Asim before? And sorry?
The question was if we have used Asim.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And how many of you missed blend shapes from it? That was my main motivation. Everything else is kind of like a side effect. But yeah, obviously I wanted to make a little bit more streamlined importer, which might require less nodes to operate. But then, you know me, it kind of got convoluted very quickly. So it might require less node to deal with the mesh, but you will see that the amount of nodes didn't really change with the materials and everything else. So that was the main motivation. Also to deal with the FBX files which Asim would not open by itself because they are not using the official Autodesk SDK. So if everyone installed their thing, let me just go to my thing. Don't worry about my yeah. And meanwhile, it's loading. I have to thank a couple of people. Some of them are actually here who beta tested this thing and provided their feedback. Hereby, I really appreciate their feedback, and most of it was actually I tried to cover most of them. In the release product, you decide how it did go out and whatnot. So if everyone successfully downloaded their thing, I suggest first opening the inside GURPower folder, the GURPower.v4p, which is kind of 101 patch, FBX4V 101. So it kind of demos and explains all the features, which I will go through with you. So if anyone has difficulties installing the patch, just raise their hand and we can continue. By the way, everyone downloaded by now and installed it? This thing? I don't know if you're following or not. Okay, I will just want kernel from this. So this is already have a typo. It's using FBX SDK 2018 because they already have it in the middle of summer, which is amazing. I mean, yeah, sorry, they had it in spring. So yeah, Autodesk has a kind of weird versioning there, and as you can see, it imports blend shapes, it reads embedded textures, it has a more shader oriented pipeline, and it is kind of, yeah, you see in the rest of the comments. But first, before we start on it, I will show you a couple of tricks which you will use with this thing a lot. So I developed a couple of generic nodes for FBX4V, especially the ones which are called expand. And expand is you take whatever type, and for example, a DX11 semantics. So like this one. Call it my semantic. And like that. So connect it to reference type and hit learn type. And if it will create a new input pin with the learned type, and you can connect it to whatever custom type you have, and it will read out all of its properties and fields. And if a field has an array, is an array or an enumerable, it will automatically create a bin-sized pin out of it. And it's obviously spreadable because it would be quite useless without being spreadable. Also, if you want to accept a higher level higher level type in the inheritance hierarchy, then you can select the learn type inheritance level and set it to a higher one. So if we learn it again, you will see it's now not accepting, so it's now accepting not only vector 4 render semantic, but it accepts IDX11 render semantic now, which can work with all other data. Obviously, we'll lose couple specified in the lower level type there in the hierarchy. And yeah, if we connect it to inputs, you will see this thing. So I don't know, it will be a very useful trick you will have there. And yeah, this might be the only one which I will cover now yet, because yeah, I just changed my mind, and we will deal with this. We deal with these nodes in MD ecosystem contextually during the day. So yeah, okay. Also, before I start, does anybody here has their own set of FBX files? You can raise your hands. Okay. That's amazing, because I have a limited number of FBX files I can test it with, and you know, the more we can test with it with is the better. And I will do a survey later on that yeah, consisting who's 3D modeling as well, who's not, but that will come a little bit later. So finally, we would go into the main node is FBX file. Oh yeah, accidentally I put the debug DLL into these folders, which is slightly slower at importing things. Oh no, not at all. It's release DLL. Okay, ignore what I just said. Is it? Oh no. This is the one without the non-commercial warning. So unfortunately, I have to make a little bit of usage terms here. Don't use these DLLs anywhere else outside NODE17. I screwed that up. But in real life, when you create this FBX file first, using it in a non-commercial environment, it will pop up a little annoyer reminding you about the fact that it is a non-commercial build. So you guys are lucky you have the commercial now. But yeah, we will still think about the actual price tag on this thing, because we at Uberact are kind of very indecisive about these things. But if you have any suggestions based on that, I'm very open to that sort of thing. And also, if you, we would also distribute DLLs without this warning. If you write us a little email about a non-commercial project where vvvv needs to start automatically, you write us an email about this project, and we will most likely provide you with one if it's indeed a non-commercial version. But all of this license thing is written in the installer of VPM, so you can get the point there. And
if I install your essentials from Git, it seems like, is that not the newest version? It's on master.
Sorry?
So I got essentials from Git on master.
Yeah.
It's complaining about expand node not being there and stuff. Do you know if that's not the newest version?
Really? Expand node is actually very new. I mean, it's not that new. So, okay. Boris,
Yeah.
can you help him out with that?
Yeah, sure.
So,
I got stuff from Git, but I didn't see it work, so I'm just tracking network.
okay. Yeah, if you don't see that, you will have hard time seeing FBX4V as well, because it uses that node as well. Okay, I will check it. I will check it out after the workshop. So you create this. So we first the core, the actual thing loading FBX is kind of happening here. FBX file and the pattern of collada file or geometry file or scene file. So you get the point. Here you feed your asset, and here are a couple of toggles. So thankfully the FBX SDK provides some utility functions which would ease the importing of 3D scenes. Like it can triangulate non-triangular polygons like quads and n-gons, and also it can triangulate NURB surfaces if anybody works with them. I haven't seen any models on the internet which was FBX and NURB surfaces, so if somebody might work with them, they can provide us a couple to test it out. So this new triangulation method is off by default, and I kinda recommend that to have it off, because the only benefit it will have is the capability to triangulate n-gons with holes in them. So if you have n-gons with holes in them, you are, to my opinion, you are doing something really wrong in 3D modeling. But it's just my personal opinion. But the disadvantage of this is it will import your model much more slower, and triangles which initially have very low areas, like below 10 to the minus 6 or minus 7, then it will skip those triangles, and it might cause holes in your blend shapes or skinning animation. The remove bad polygons is what it is. It might remove isolated vertices or lonely vertices, and it might remove lines as well, which, by the way, lonely vertices and lines are not really supported yet in FBX file. If you need those kind of special cases, I would rather use an OBJ or something like that from Blender and reading it manually. And then finally, the baking parameters are here, which means that to have animation, to have skeletal and rigid transform animations, you want to, FBX4V requires you to bake them to disk first, which will do it for you, and it will create a little FBM folder next to your FBX file, which also is created by Autodesk SDK if the FBX contains embedded media. It is stored, the embedded media, the entirety of the embedded media is stored in FBX and extracted as a software readable file. So the implementing software doesn't have to deal with special cases. It just needs to read a file from where FBX SDK says it is written to. And so it will bake these FBBA files with this sampling rate. And you can later on use this file with with the very fast animation evaluation. So if we hit reload, it will work completely asynchronous. So FBX4V has its own thread, and as you can see, the textures are also loading up. And if you open GURPower V4P and hit reload, you should see this thing. And don't mind if the clothing jumps around, because that's kind of a jittering coming from the fact that the animation is evaluated on the FBX thread. So the blend shape evaluation is, okay, I will go to that. I will go to that. And I also recommend to send it out the scene object, the scene wrapper, because you will need it quite some time. So if you don't send it out, it will just create that, infinite amount of connections to a single pin, which looks kind of disturbing. So the first node which we will use to get data, to just see the data from FBX, is the Scene Explorer. And note this is this window is again created on the FBX thread. So currently it is blocking vvvv because of the blend shape evaluator. But if you're not using blend shapes, it will not block vvvv either. And also it has these buttons, which is useful. So here in the Scene Explorer, you can see through the node hierarchy of your FBX file. And for example, here with the this is a cloth shapes. So here with the cloth, I can see the node itself contains a mesh and material. So if I open both, I can see the mesh elements stored inside the vertex. The original vertex count. This might not be the actual vertex count inside vvvv because of how FBX SDK stores vertices. I will tell you about them later when we get to that point. And then, as you can see, under the meshes, we have the blend shape, and then blend shapes, and we have the channels here. And to see skeletons, skeletons are actually very simple. They just express through nodes. And if I find out, oh yeah, here it is. So those are basically just expressed through nodes, which has a little bit of property attached to it, which indicates that it is indeed the skeleton. It is indeed this node is indeed part of a skeleton node, and sorry, that is a limb node or something, but all those acts like their own nodes. So, and yeah, you can view the raw FBX object 3, which is waste. Yeah, all of this crap, and I will have, if I will find time, I will make this a little bit more comprehensible. Or more comfortable to use. But for now, this helps you to view if your all of your data from the 3D package made it through, and view what the current model or important model or important scene can do or can have. So how this is exposed to vvvv is with those expand nodes I explained earlier. So if we expand the scene here, we will see that it will give me a couple of metadata about the file, and like where it is placed, or where is that FBM folder I was talking about earlier, what is the file name, and what is the hash of the file. The hash is used to determine if the file was changed. So the baking of the of FBX file actually uses the hash to determine whether it is wise to whether it have to rebake the animations again, or it can go with it. And then you have all the nodes here. Notice that every node is referenced in vvvv with a path-like structure, and it can explode. Especially with skeletons, it can explode into mayhem, as you can see in this sense. Okay, this is Facebook. So as you can see, it can explode really well if a node is deep inside the parent-child relationship the children of the children of the children. But don't worry, I will tell you a couple of things how to deal with that. It tells vvvv, obviously it has a bin size. It tells vvvv it has 122 nodes. And I mean this particular model. And it will also give you the information of how many animations you have and some other human readable documentum info, which then these kind of informations, which I don't know who might use. It's just good to know things. And so yeah, the nodes transformations are actually exposed through the skeleton. So as you can see, to work with that, work with hierarchical transformations in a meaningful way, I chose Skeleton, what is provided already in the vvvv SDK. But unfortunately, the original nodes were developed a long time ago, and they use the plugin interface v1, which is quite hard to work with, and the direct result of that is they are not spreadable. So I just ported the Skeleton vvvp plugin to plugin interfaces v2, so you can work with it in a more modern way, and it is also bin sized and spreadable. So if we will have a look, v2 to v1 at the node hierarchy, which is exposed through this expand node. Actually, are you guys mind that do you guys mind if I do this sort of things in here, or should I put it in an empty patch to show you this? Okay, yeah, I will do that. Okay, okay. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Okay. Yeah, so I will go through then with this on an empty patch, yeah, on the basics, and then go back to this girl power patch. Oh, lunch, amazing. So again, then create the FBX file. And do this, that. Yeah, a little bit of a comment on these import settings. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't successfully deciphering how you are supposed to use it. But if anybody else is more successful in that, they could try to decipher it at the FBX SDK documentation, and under that importing, exporting, and I/O settings. And good luck with that. But to my experience, this thing, the iOS route, is way enough for our purposes. I haven't. And nothing changed while I was testing out different combinations, what I've seen on this documentation. So, but just in case, if somebody would discover its use or how to deal with it, then it is exposed as a pin. Just a side comment there. So let's open. Yeah, I will do animation, so let's open that again. Okay, and notice we have a renderer window. which can tell us a couple of information. Oops. Scene Explorer FBX. So if I hit the reload now, you can see it will put some information for me in the TTY as well. And so if I expand this scene again, then I can show you the skeleton thing I was talking about earlier. So to view that, you have to convert it to the old skeletons. You have to convert it to the old skeleton plugin thing and view it with select joint node. So here we can see our node hierarchy, and you can see it has all the parts have these names with the path in it. And I can see why it would be a pain in the ass to work with. So the solution for that is in skeleton nodes anyway, is to have is in V2.
David,
Yes?
what do you do to that expand node?
So the expand node, if you there's a reference type pin. If you connect your data, what you want to expand, connect it to the reference type first and hit learn type.
Okay.
And then it will, and then connect it to the newly created input with that type. So where was I? Oh yeah, okay. So to work with these things, these names, I would suggest using some sort of sifting or searching, regex searching, which is also like implemented in the skeleton nodes itself. I will show you the uses of that. Actually, I can show you the uses of that right in this patch, isolated. If I go back to GURPower, and then it's subpatches, and then we have the custom girl animation. So as you can see, if you want to work with nodes or get nodes, you don't have to type out the entire name with their path. So you can just do regex in there. I don't know if you can see it from the back. Just to have more emphasis on these. So you can get the regex in there. If anybody not familiar with regular expressions, what it basically says that you can have whatever in front of this text, and search for the part where it will find this particular sequence of characters and the end of file or end of text. Because if I wouldn't put it there, it might also find all the children of this node as well, which for this purpose we just want to animate one. But nothing stops you. And obviously, if you just put this into the searching pattern, the single set joint node will affect all the joints. But it will affect all the joints if you don't put anything there either. So that's the thing. And also this is bin sized, so if you have a different, you want to set different joins of a second skeleton or any other number of skeletons, put in a spread to here, that, sorry, it will, yeah, it will know which skeleton to use. And now to demonstrate that, to get the animation, rigid transform animation out of that, you will have this evaluate transform nodes, which then just to follow good practices. I mean, someone might say this is not good practice because, you know, they deal with send and receive nodes. But in this case, this one is kind of used as a global variable here. If you will have multiple FBX nodes and you don't want to tie together modules, you might want to use a send node which limits the scope into a single patch, which is included in MP essentials. So send node in patch, and it will do FBX scene. Oh, this is an old one. Okay, I have to update that. But anyway, it still does the job. It would just write little description here, similar to the original send nodes. Anywho, so when you want to receive it, receive in patch, it awaits a string, and then it says it doesn't find it. Anyhow, if you have this, then it will find it here. As you can see, what it just does, it prepends the patch ID path in front of the string what you would have here, so you can have multiple send receive nodes in different scopes. So for this time we just use it now, because it stays, so if you create a patch, it will stay this way. It will, yeah, while you cannot be null, so it will spaz out because reasons beyond my knowledge at this point. Okay, this is weird. Yeah, it is imported, so why it says value can be null? Anywho, that's a problem. I need to. Okay. That's a problem I need. Oh, I know. So in order this node would work, sorry about my absence, not putting a case on it. That will come in a hotfix after node 17. But you have to turn on bake anim stacks, even if you know that the anim stacks are already baked. Because it checks whether it will just freak out. So if I hit reload now, it should be okay. So it will take, it will know the By the way, if there's any, sorry about, I didn't ask, but is everybody familiar with these kind of terms like anim stacks, nodes inside 3D scenes, or any of these? If you don't understand these terms, just raise your hands. And whenever I say something, just raise your hands. That what the hell are you talking about? And I will explain it. So is everybody familiar with these terms, like anim stacks? Okay, the anim stack is basically here. It's only a single take, but if I open another, okay, this is another Go power. If I open this example patch, again is okay. I will just close this and load this in. So as you can see, this particular FBX file has multiple animation stacks, and the evaluate transformations can play back all. So an animation stack is basically a take or an action or a group of a separate timeline where each parameter has a different animation curve or a different animation. And as you can see, this particular model has a couple, and these are just duplicates because Blender exports it in a quite weird way. And then, yeah, you can select these in evaluate transforms. And to get these, so for instance, I want to get I don't know, the spine. So I go in there, whatever be behind it, spine, and then yeah, spine, and then the end. And to use regex search, you have to explicitly turn this on. And just connect it here. And yeah, because we have 4 skeletons, it found a single node which matches this pattern. And if we decompose it, we can see the translation and rotation of it, and you can deal with this sort of thing. Now this the wording the phrasing of skeleton, I don't really agree with that, because in most people's mind it would limit the usage to character animation. But the truth is, this is just a simple transformation hierarchy, as this pin would also say. So if I so it isn't only useful for character animation, but it is also useful for regular rigid transform relationships. For example, you have a house with rooms in it, and each room would have a null object, and the parent of that null object would be the furniture in that room, and so on and so on. So if I would just transform so I only need to transform that room null object to transform the children with the same time as well. So does anybody know what a null object is in 3D package context? Null object is basically an empty object. Sorry?
Something like a root or something like that.
No, not the root, but it's an empty object. Usually it is used as a root of some subgraph or something like that, but subtree. But yeah, that's the thing, and you can.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there any tutorial on how to prepare those animations in 3D software?
Well, yes, and I guess there's a lot of tutorials on doing animations and exporting them. In theory, FBX does not require any special preparation.
So you were basically looking for stack animations?
Yes, I mean anim stacks. In Blender, you have to do these action strips, and those action strips during the export, you can convert those into these anim stacks. These one, yeah. So that's yeah. So the FBX doesn't require any special preparation for that. So where was I? Yeah, sorry.
Is it possible to have the input morph between the different stacks right now?
Sorry.
Is it possible to have input morph to have a blend?
Yes, of course. If you search for Skeleton v2, you will have the mix pose node what you would have in the old Skeleton nodes, which is basically the same. I mean, it's basically you can do the same with it as an input morph node. So probably that's why I didn't have the input morph implemented. But to be perfectly honest, I think it's kind of beyond the scope of this workshop to have.
If it is possible to do this,
It.
To mix the different poses.
Yes, it is possible, and even it is with the V2 with the V2 version. It is also possible to not only mix from a single file, but to mix multiple skeletons from multiple files. Even if the skeleton has different topology, it will copy the topology from the first input of mix pose. You can have as many as you like, and then it will just go through all the other. It will just search for those nodes in the other in the remaining skeletons you connect into these. So you can absolutely do that. I might do a spectral version of it. Because now you can, but I don't think so. We will deal with it here because I will rather concentrate on rendering the meshes and how to materialize them. But it works the same as the old mixed pose nodes, so which is quite well documented in the vvvv documentation actually. So where's oops. Oh no, where's the... Oh, there you go. If I put it here, does it... Oh, this is very much better place. Yes, amazing. So, any questions about the node hierarchy? Amazing. So, we can continue on there. Yeah, we covered this then. Yes? So evaluate transforms is taking care of evaluating the animations. That's why the name. It awaits. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't tell you this. Yeah, that's a very good point. That this node takes a time, and then it will just put out the state of that node hierarchy at that given time. You can turn on relative as well. So relative means that this time will not mean seconds, but the progress from 0 to 1 where you want your animation to be. So you can connect an LFO and view the whole animation. Well, it's not really guaranteed it will be played back in. By that, you can't really make sure that to play back in the right amount of time. I mean, unless you set the LFO period manually. But if you turn off relative, it will be seconds. So time will be seconds. Time, as you can see here, time is spreadable. So yeah, these spreads of multiple skeletons can live completely independently.
Okay, and why I cannot select anything on this evaluate transformers like always months.
Yeah, Boris, can
your own model?
so yeah, this is I think this is covered enough. If nobody else have questions about it.
This is basically what the old skeletal mesh was doing.
Yeah, the behavior is the same. Slightly improved on that to get rid of the old skeleton quirks and done some proper cases as well. And with the set joint, for example, there's the option to it won't only override the animation or the base transform, but you can set whether to multiply it with the inputs and multiply it where. Your input matrix would go first, then the joint matrix, or your joint matrix go first, then the input matrix. You can do that. So going back to this patch. Import it again, and what should be the next? Yeah, let's be the next to actually draw this thing out. So as you can see, skeletal mesh here. There is in the release version. If you downloaded the pack from the USB drives or the NODE17 shared folder. You wouldn't have this, but if you might have used it, you might have tried it after release, and you had this module mesh. Okay, you still have it then. I forgot to delete it. So this mesh FBX is not working. It will be removed. Don't use it. Where's the magnifier? This one is forbidden. Anyone uses this, I will say that stop using it. I mean, you can't because it's broken, so don't do that. So the only way to get the mesh out from FBX4V is through the Skeletal mesh node, which has a couple of options, parameters. So we might just go through all of them. From the back there, for example, who's sitting on the in front of the window, is this readable? Those things, or no? Okay, so I will just use magnifier, then don't move. So this must be better then. So I will go through this and then see how it goes in practice. So first, obviously, you would need a scene. It awaits a node path. Oops. Let's just attach to it. So this node path here is currently root node. This root node is named the same for every FBX file, and this is the top node of your tree. So if I look at the scene explorer and I open this, you can see this is the only single top node, so you can count with that. And that also means that if I put root node into the node path of the skeletal mesh and hit recursive, that skeletal mesh will process all the meshes inside the FBX file. I will show, in another example, another girl power example, there's a case where I don't want some meshes to be rendered, and I will show you that basically after I go through these parameters first. So as you can see, skeletal mesh can deal with multiple UV layers. So it can also generate tangents based on your selected UV layer. So if for some reason your texture coordinates, okay, does anybody know what tangents do in 3D model? I mean, just raise your hands if you know it. Come on, guys. One person, two, okay. You should know it as well. Tangent space.
I don't want to be the smart ass that answers everything.
Sorry?
I don't want to be the smart guy that like saying yeah.
Okay, anyway. So tangents are, at least you guys know what normals are, right? You do this with your head. So tangents are basically helping vectors. In a good case, they are perpendicular to normals, and they show on the vertex in word space the flow of the texture coordinates. I mean, might be better phrasing for it, but
It lets you create a coordinate space from a
Yeah, yes, indeed. So for every vertex there, you can create a coordinate space. That's how normal mapping does its job, which we will have a look at, for example, here on the neck. Yeah, you can say if the FBX, if this 3D package already generated some tangents for us, just ignore it and overwrite it. But not every mesh in the FBX file might have it, so you can just generate it. But in this case, it will generate tangents automatically without your consent anyway if the model doesn't have one. You can turn on generate normals as well, but that is not mandatory as in tangents. And then you can set it here a couple of options for generating normals. Inverse them by multiplying them -1, or basically inverse them by doing a reverse winding for the normal generation. But these are rarely used, very edge cases. So turning on previous position means that you can have velocity. You can calculate velocity for your vertices, which then would be used for motion blur in my most usual case. Here, allocate instance ID components. If you want to render out multiple instances of the mesh, you have to turn these on. Enable skinning is trivial. The maximum skinning weights per vertex I will go into that later. Enable blend shapes also trivial. And this one here is taking care of cases where the normals in blend shapes are not exported right from the 3D package, and I will show you an example in a moment. And then you have reevaluate basically means if you set these options, it's not immediately changed. So to apply these options, these options are applied when you import a mesh or you hit this reevaluate bang. And the reason for this, that I don't want to have any sort of unstable situation while it is running. So you set it first, hit reevaluate, and then it should do its job. So here I can state how many instances I want to create from this mesh, and then how many bones it have, how many bones one instance should deal with. And then there are two bone transformation buffers to allow to generate those velocity I was talking about, and then the shape weights. I open another eager power. Sorry, I didn't open that earlier, but it just got to my mind now. So the old man V4P. This was the base for the trailer and the 5 minutes presentation at Keynote. Yeah, I will just raise it to this for the moment. Import the old man. Scene is ready, all done. Amazing. You should see this. Yes. So in here, the reason I opened this this example and not use the girl power is that here I can you can see how to exclude nodes from the skeletal mesh. So you can just go sift through these. If it's you know your sifting methods. So sift through these. If they are not containing these two, then just select it, and then turn off recursive. So it will ignore nodes, ignore the meshes of these nodes, or you can just pull the node part out and render the meshes exclusive to these nodes. So you can get the point. Anywho, before I continue, does anybody have questions regarding everybody understands this node selection thing? I take it as a yes. So we can go on. Don't worry, the PBR part or the rendering part, most of them will come a little bit later. So yeah, let's do blend shapes first. And how to first of all, before I go into any specifics, you can see this node is actually a module and takes up quite some CPU time, as you can see. Even if the enable processing doesn't really change it. So the reason is it's quite a big patch, and I need to still develop the plugin version of it. And it also has this enable processing pin, which can, if your mesh is not animated, you should turn this off. That will give you a lot of performance gain. And I will show you a bit static meshes as well, how that works. And also what I wanted to say about it, that you can notice that the skeletal mesh node awaits DirectX 11 resources for the animated properties. So you are not limited to dynamic buffers here. You can also have your own GPU-based whatnot, and feed that into the skeletal mesh node. So I thought I'd just tell you this little information. And in case of matrices, that just a simple float 4x4 matrix, like that. Here it's the DX11 buffer transform. But in case of blend shapes, that is a row buffer. And the reason for this is I didn't want it to limit the usage case, but if people don't agree with that choice, like Vux probably wouldn't agree with that choice, and they would raise their disagreement into the contribution page, I will probably convert this into a vector 2D thing. The reason, it has two. So okay, this is one float per shape weight. You can see how many shapes mesh have if you go into the skeletal node, and you can see. Okay, yeah. And you have to explode the shape metadata, expand the shape metadata output. So learn this. And then it will tell you how many shapes a single mesh has. So in this case, the head has 142, and then the rest doesn't have any other shapes. So that means you can feed in 142 float values, just floating point values, and then times 2, because of it will await the previous frame as well, so you can generate again velocity for the shapes 2. And this is now done with audio input. Let's see if I do with microphone. Oops. I don't think so. It will change anything. Anyway, I just do what I've done with the presentation. So you have this smooth random thing in MP Essentials, which is quite handy if you want some smooth noise over time. There was Berlin as well, so you can have it. Okay, let us see. All right, okay, yes, all right, yay. And you can do very creepy things. So yeah, you can animate this and have it too. And the weight can go below 0 or above 0. Obviously, below 0 would transform those shapes back into place. So if we look at the individual shapes, you want to look at the individual shapes, you can have this peak spread, and you can go through all others. So, for example, here it's in this model's case, blend shapes are also used to correct skinning caused distortions anatomically. So in their case, the skinning would distort the neck in a way that wouldn't be correct. So they would fix it in blend shape. But unfortunately, the skinning didn't go through with this particular model, and we will have a look at maybe why. But you can have these sorts of applications as well. And obviously, mouth movement receives the most blend shapes. And also the lids are controlled with blend shapes as well in this case, and the eyelids. So you have this one, and then plug it in. So if I want to multiply it with -1, you see it will Will it do the exact opposite? Oh, no, 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 it doesn't. It won't go the opposite way. It is obviously clamped there. But you can go like, oops. You can go above 1 and do really weird things. So, oops, okay, yeah, that's number 1. Okay, I had in mind where I wanted to go after this, but I kind of forgot it. Oh yes, yes. So I will now show you why you might want to. Sorry about this. So you might want to turn off use normals from blend shapes, because if the 3D model doesn't export it right, it will be totally fucked up. So yeah, you can see this. So in facial animation, this doesn't influence so much, because it won't. So the lighting of it won't be as correct. But for example, in the case of the skirts of the girl, which is the cloth physics simulation baked into blend shapes, in that case, using normals is very important. So you can get away with it inside with faces, but you have to think about it while exporting from a 3D package. Think about normals as well for blend shapes, for anything else. But yeah, mostly good practice. Just think about normals in general when you're exporting your own 3D models with blend shapes from a 3D package. And you can see the bone size here is thing. I was trying to get working with the skinning with the head, but it did not. So we might have a look at it. By the way, does anybody have Maya installed on their computer right now? Ah, so okay. Sorry?
I have.
No, oh, there you go. There's 2 already. Don't be afraid to raise your hands when I ask these kind of questions, because.
But I had to check if I have.
Ah, okay, okay. Sorry. All right. So yeah, we might borrow your laptop for presentation, but might not gonna happen. Sorry?
It's really hard to move this thing. Practically, I don't have a screen. I mean, I do have a screen. I can see things on it. But when I move it, it's just losing the connection.
Ah, okay.
We can try.
It's,
You need just Maya?
yeah, but later. And it might not even happen. Just to prepare it. Okay, so we have this smiling old man now, and we want to render it. Yay! Now is the great. We're finally there, guys. So as you can see in the output of the skeletal mesh node, here we can see the name of the nodes and the ID of the mesh, because one node can have multiple meshes as well. So you can see the ID of it next to it. So you can have a picture of which nodes gone through with the which nodes had actually meshes what you can work with, the actual vertex count of those meshes, and this is used for the feature what kind of features you have in a subset, but I might not go into that by now. And you have, so FBX4V prepares you defines for shaders. Now, this one over here is a way to tell your shaders when you compose your input structure to if it has a obviously it will have a position in normal, but does it have a previous position? Does it have texture coordinates, tangents, binormals, all 3 type of IDs, and these bits, and then a couple of other things which are used in FBX4V internally as well, but might be useful for the user too. Is vertex size in bytes, and then do the skinning, do the blend shapes, or don't do them. And you see this stream out layout. This is useful for geomfx and stream out renderer, which I might show you actually. Okay, no, I won't show you. Okay, I won't show you it here, but I will show you in here.
By the way, if you want like some help with actually exporting FBX from Blender with blend rate, I can show you. I have one file.
Yeah, actually we need a couple of testing models from Blender, because from the looks of it, the skinning from Blender might have some problems. But yeah, if you can provide me character animation or any skeletal animation which is exported from Blender, that would be I would really appreciate that. So I can figure out what is the problem there. So back to the thing, how those defines would be used is everybody. For guys who might be familiar with this, if you have been going to the Advanced DX11 workshop, you should be familiar with the stream out geometry shader. And when you construct this, the layout string is actually pre-processed in from vvvv with the stream out layout, as in this model's case you could see here, like this. So continuing through the output pins, you have the vertex position, vertex semantics, vertex components by name. The input elements, so again you can use that in geomfx or in stream out renderer, and finally you have the geometry and row buffer out, which you obviously, so you connect the geometry to the shader obviously. You have a little queue, you have the usual query for the process, for the processing geometry processing pipeline inside the skeletal mesh. So if I hit the timestamp, I can see that my way of dealing with meshes is not so optimal, because it takes 15 milliseconds to deal with 100 blend shapes. So I can absolutely improve on that part. Going back. Oh, sorry, this magnifier as always. So going back to here, update query, and then you have all sorts of booleans. Does the mesh has texture coordinates? What are the UV layers called? So you can have a picture about what you're using. Obviously the amount of UV layers. So as you can see, 2 of the meshes coming with the old man has actually 2 UV layers, and you can use them in the shader. I mean, not this one particularly, but your own. We will actually create on the second half of the workshop. We will create light maps and do a static global illuminated thing from render and use multiple UV layers to do that. I think we will have time for that, but it might not happen, you know. Yeah, and yeah, okay. So back to the topic. You have the toggle boxes for if it has skinning or not. Bone binding information. Obviously, if it doesn't have skinning, it doesn't have any. Does it have blend shapes? Shape information. Is it ready with the evaluation? Because it's done in another thread. You can actually have a loading spinner in your vvvv patch if you want to, based on this one. Did the evaluation have any error? And then some spatial information about the overall scale and the center point. So just to show that this bounding box min max is actually working and it's not just a bug, I will re-evaluate the mesh. And as you can see, it was just not calculating because I haven't connected anything to bounding box min and max. But based on that, you can normalize your scene into more manageable size, or just use it for any other calculation in Frustrum culling, for example, or any sorts of culling. So should I close that door? Or, I don't know. Maybe it's just very occasional that some noise is coming from there. But notice this has only a single slice of band. I mean, this is a 3D vector, so a single 3D vector for the bounding box min and max, and this single overall scale value. And the reason is that the geometry, you can only get, you're only getting a single geometry. And the reason for that is that all the subsets are actually merged together into a single geometry. So you can deal with that dynamically inside your shaders based on resources or numbers or any kind of input created on the GPU. So you are not limited to draw. So you don't have to do as many draw calls as many geometry you have. You can do only one draw call. And to work with subsets, each vertex has their subset ID. Subset is like the eyes are separate subsets, and the teeth and the mouth is separate subset from the head. So And this makes it also work with GeoMFX, which to my most recent knowledge doesn't support spreading. It might have changed. Does it support spreading now?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah. So it's yeah. You can use all your subsets inside the GeoMFX, and you don't have to do all sorts of hackery to deal with them once. So that's the reason why it doesn't output a spread of geometry. But if the demand will be high to output a spread of geometry, I will probably implement that at some point. But for more advanced usage, a single geometry might be, a single geometry resource might be a better choice. And the way how you would connect it to a shader which is aware of the of the materials and everything is through connecting it to a define pin. Here the PBR switches nodes are actually wraps around a couple of switches for my PBR pipeline, a PBR based pipeline, but there's a little bit of misunderstanding throughout the community. That a couple of people think that these the geometry which is coming out of this is not compatible with any sorts of shaders. It is compatible with any sorts of shaders. And, just to demonstrate that, I will put just a phone direction on it. And oops, yeah, whatever, this will be good. Okay, and have the camera connected to it. Okay, and what else do I miss? Yes, so it does work with any geometry. It does work with any shader. So it is just the PBR base just takes care of taking subsets into account out of the box. But it's actually a very easy modification on top of general shaders as well. If you want just different colors but don't want these shenanigans. What PBR base also would need. Yeah, and before I jump into what's going on with shaders, does anybody have a question regarding the meshes yet? Nobody? Okay. So, hi Roy. So, okay. Yeah, one word with materials is that in FBX there is a way to embed shaders per materials. Now, I didn't implement this. I mean, I'm not accounting for this yet because I don't have any models to test with. But in the future, where is this scene? There you go. So in the Scene Explorer node, you will be able to right-click on nodes and then edit a couple of things with them, including binding shaders to including binding shaders. This is annoying. Including binding shaders to materials. And but until that happens, you have kind of a simple set of parameters for materials. You can have the shading model here and the name of the material here. And there are, for every material, you can have variable amount of properties, which is coming in their own wrapper type. The reason it's coming in their own wrapper type because every property can have different dimensions, and you will see what I'm talking about just in a moment. So, as you can guess it, I was lazy to write its own expanding node, because I wrote all the nodes in C++, and writing in C++ is very painful. Especially only probably it would be painful only for people coming from the managed world. So here you can see all the properties of let's just get slicer material, and so it won't be that convoluted. Yeah, so like that. So in this case, we are viewing the Blin3 material. Okay, let's view something more meaningful, the outer eye material, for example. And then I would have here. So as you can see, it says diffuse color, like a multiplier, emissive color, there's multipliers. From the looks of it, Autodesk SDK provides every time a factor or something, because the colors are actually just RGB probably, and not RGB alpha. And then you have normal map, bump, and transparent color. Normal map is in here because you can bind texture to that if you export it in the right way. In Blender, you have to export it with Blender internal, so you can attach the texture information onto the model, and it will also see if any properties have a texture information attached to it. Now, as you can see, this model did not export it right with that case, because obviously the diffuse color should have a texture attached to it, and the normal map should have a texture attached to it. But unfortunately, it's a very chaotic situation with the 3D industry exporting these things, to my experience. I mean, probably in VFX world it's already taken care of, but unfortunately we are not VFX world, and it's not really useful. So what's this 100? So that is doop. I will just have a look at what that's what 100 value. Which which property has that value? Oh, it's shininess. Okay, it's shininess exponent. So as you can see, it doesn't even use more modern approaches like roughness metal or glossy metal, which is kind of a shame. And you can attach custom properties to it, to the material, but again, the 3D package explicitly needs to support that, and the current support is really bad for it. Even in Autodesk programs, the current support is not quite trivial. So the workaround, I have a couple of workarounds that you can obviously just do your own inside vvvv, but if we close this, meanwhile these closing loadings are very good times to ask questions, and open sponza.v4p in girl power. By vvvv opening, I ask again that everybody can follow.
Do you support substance designer stuff?
No, unfortunately, I don't support it. It would be very nice to support it, but unfortunately, I don't have a substance designer license, and it is not seem to be, that SDK not seem to be open to the public.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Yeah, so, well, unless that happens, it won't be implemented, unfortunately. But Boris actually had found a very good website to get PBR materials and textures in it.
Oh yeah, you can check out the...
What is it called? Poly? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's 1 second, I'll have the link. It's called Polygon, but with double I, normal like II, .com.
Okay.
Find if you hit search and write PBR ready.
By the way, we are not affiliated with these guys, so.
Yeah, but they are alright. It's actually guys behind Blender Guru that do this.
Oh yeah, okay, I know them. Okay.
So David,
Yes.
do you currently you do method and roughness workflow, or you also support specular roughness workflow?
I do meta roughness, and the reason is that it's just infinitely better than shininess and what was the other one? Yeah, shininess and specular.
Yeah, it's glossiness and specularity now.
Yeah.
I find that to be infinitely better, but people tend to disagree on that because it's really easy to think of a material if you think of it how rough and how glossy it is, how specular and how glossy.
Roughness is just the inverse of glossiness.
Yeah, I know, but metalness, that kind of term that doesn't make that much sense because
It makes sense.
either metal or not, so you never have a thing being 50% metalness.
You know where it makes sense? When you draw dirt on your metal, and the dirt has some sort of transparency over the metal.
I totally get it.
And so in those cases, it makes kind of some sense. But you are right, most of the time it's either metal or not. But
No, sorry, I mean, you don't have to justify it, I was just curious.
yeah. But in my opinion, that results in very much. So the reason why it's a parameter that you can control it with the texture.
Yeah, I know.
So in this case, for example, with these paints,
Yeah, sure.
like scraped off paints. So go back to here.
Yeah, and for example, if you want to use these materials or make them yourself in Blender, there is it's not yet released. It's only in test build, but Blender now has the principle BSDF, which has the whole workflow for these materials. You can try this one, or you can make your materials in Blender and then use them in FBX.
It's GGX based, right? The BSDF.
Yeah, but it's the Disney implementation in the principled shader in Blender. Is it not in release build?
It's in test build right now. It will be just released.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. So yeah, back to materials here. As you can see, okay, let's just fix this. So first in Sponza, if we reload it, yada yada yada, and you can see it loading up, and we can go around it, and it's very good. So in this case, I'm using a little bit different shader than before. It's the PBR base advanced. So the difference is, well, I was not talking about too much the PBR base either, so I might as well do that now. So in PBR base, every subset would read off a flat buffer, and every parameter category would have its own buffer. So it's kind of a naive implementation, but it was very quick to work with vvvv. But for more scalable and performance critical environments, I wouldn't recommend it, because again, you read from multiple buffers. So and yeah, you read from multiple buffers with the same kind of topology. So you might not. It is not the wisest to do so. So in PBR base advanced, there is material pipeline I'm currently working with, and it's kind of going, but it might have their fail cases. So here you can see a processor node which awaits a message, and that message would contain the current material setup in for PBR Advanced. If we go over to the right side of this patch, first of all, there is a little error here, because it does not. I had a little bit of brain damage and connected one output pin to the completely wrong side here. So let me fix that right now in assets, and in Sponza there is the. Oh yeah, this is not the original Sponza textures. I converted them to have a little bit more PBR ready kind of thing, and I will talk to you about why the roughness textures are red and green, red and yellow, red and green. And yeah, I will talk about that later. So if I'm dragging this into here, yeah, you will have this amount. And so you have a category called PBR material, which has two nodes. I mean, you can't really have too much options in there. which joins a material structure kind of thing. It's a very simple node. It just joins together into a message. Who was going to the messages workshop? You guys are not so interactive. Do you know that?
It's Thursday, man.
It's
now.
Oh yeah, I'm about to go there. Like,
oh, it's today. Yes, it's today. Okay, yeah, that is convenient. Yeah, okay. Let's not get derailed on this. But who used messages before then?
yeah,
Amazing. So messages allows you to pack together data in a very modular way and then serialize it very easily. And I can tell all sorts of odes about how awesome it is and how it makes the planet a much better place. But this is not the right time for that. And it will generate a JSON out of it. And we don't, sorry. Okay, why are you not doing that? Oh yes, of course. Because there's keep last. It's like avoid nil, just keeping the last spread, so you don't have to. So it generates a nice JSON with all the material description in it, which then you can save it to wherever you'd like to. And also read it back from wherever you'd like to. I would recommend writing it to the FBM folder, because that's kind of a working folder for an imported asset, an imported scene. If we write this, then hopefully, if I read it back, it will reload correctly. Yes, amazing. So in here, I can to view the actual to know what materials I'm modifying. It is a very good place to put this thing here. Was it 24? Yes. And then show key. So yeah, this is a complete different thing. So as you can see here, the best user interface for this would be like an Excel Excel spreadsheet or some kind of thing. But best and simplest. Okay, the best would be a node-based material editor, but we don't have that in vvvv. So what is happening here? You provide all these textures to the join node, and then you can select these textures here for albedo, normal, and rough metal, and the material names are just here to help you. Okay, yeah, it's just going here. Okay, just I realized I was not writing. Okay, yeah, it's messed up now. Okay, yeah, this is not the most, not the fastest process to get through all the textures here, if it's not exported right from the 3D package, which happened here. So, yeah, this is a bummer. Let me grab material description which was working before. Sponsor materials JSON. Yeah, put it here. Okay. All right. So yeah, you can set here the colors and then roughness method here. Now, underneath the processor node will take that information, put the textures into a texture atlas, which looks like this. And then it also provides information per material that the selected texture, where the selected texture is located on the texture atlas. This is quite good for textures with the static textures, but if you want to dynamically edit them, then dynamically modify them. Currently you have to develop your own kind of effect processor on it. So the best practice would be to load it up into render target as a background, and then for the textures you want to dynamically edit, draw on top, or draw on top of those textures you want to dynamically change over time. That would be the best practice with this pipeline. But this is kind of optional, because in processor also provides the PBR switches you have you had with the PBR base before. But so using the texture atlas is kind of optional here, because it then can use a regular texture array if you don't define texture atlas here like that. But generally, it might be a bit better solution than texture array, because of the variable size textures you can get. So you don't waste that much memory space, but you might waste some processing time because of getting back the textures inside the shader. Requires some offsetting and dealing with wrapping. As you can see here, there are a little bit of artifacts for it. For the wrapping, address wrapping, as you can see, there is a separate interfaces in this shader. At least you can deal with your own if you in your own pipeline, but then you can copy just these from the PBR based shader. And when I will go back to the girls, I can show you how to use the instance data thing. So yes, this is currently the state of materials with FBX 4V. I hope it's not too convoluted, but currently this is the way I'm doing it. It's quite manual at this point, as you can see. Also, it's got to my mind, there's a little bit of helper interface for getting these textures good. what was its name? Yeah, arrange. Was it, render texture atlas, maybe? No, it wasn't. Sorry, I forgot its name, so I have to look it up.
Is there a way to turn down the screen space ambient occlusion?
Yes, there is. I will actually go to that in the after this. Is it? Okay, so for example, for some reason I call this material editor, but here you feed it the textures. It will load them up, and then you can define your regex, regular expression searching pattern for connecting together textures. So if you hover one of them, it will highlight the textures which come with it. So which would be assigned for it, and then write this ID to the materials. So for example, this blue curtain with the ID 42 has a normal map and the so it has a normal map and the roughness metalness map, which is then 43 and 44. I don't know if you can see. Ooh, this projector is dark. You guys are having a hard time seeing this?
It's okay.
Okay, all right. But you can see the highlight is kind of this border around textures. Okay, all right.
Excuse me, where did you connect the material editor?
So the material editor just counts with the textures. It's kind of have a misleading name. It just deals with textures. I don't know why I chose this name. Sorry about that. And so, what's the time? Oh, okay. I have to hurry up. Okay, so this might make this process here a little bit easier and to work with. And you also can do some filtering. Okay. So now your question: how to reduce the ambient occlusion? There are two types. So currently, this I'm rendering it with a deferred pipeline, which is currently image-based lighting only. So it awaits an environment. There are 3 provided DDS environments in the asset spec, but I have many more. So if you'd like, I can copy a couple over for your testing purposes. And so this PBR IBL node. Again, I will walk through the pins and talk about the jazz. So this would obviously you have the resolution here. This is the base non-metal scattering blurring of the environment map on the thing. And then obviously you have the environment, and you could lower or high the environment brightness. And so, oops, attached to this. So you have 2 kinds of ambient occlusion included. One for high frequency, which from the looks of it doesn't contribute that much to the image. Maybe on closed terms, closed geometry. You can see it, and then you have the low frequency ambient occlusion, which is a different algorithm, and also provides some kind of color bleeding as well. If we can see, so as you can see on the under the curtain. Okay, maybe the red is more visible in this projector, but yeah, it's a very subtle effect.
You're getting that through AO?
Sorry?
Are you doing the diffuse bounce?
It's actually an effect ripped from Reshade. I don't know if you know it. It is kind of post-processing hooking library for games, and they have a couple of impressive post effects, including the this SSDO like color bouncing, which takes ambient occlusion, which takes the color into account, and the result is you get this very local color bouncing. It's obviously not as good as NVIDIA VXGI would be. So you have that, and to lower these intensities, obviously you have the intensity pins for it, and you can also, this is physically absolutely incorrect, as you could tell, but unfortunately for real-time rendering you have to go with these things. I have an idea to implement VXGI into vvvv, but problem is time on that sense. By the way, do you guys know what VXGI is? Is NVIDIA's voxel-based global illumination library.
They like voxelize the scene and then do lighting stuff based on that. It's like a way to do global illumination in real time.
Yeah, but it's the reason I'm thinking about implementing it. It seems to be surprisingly simple to use. I mean, you just have to provide a shader for the voxels, and then your geometry buffer, and then it will spit out a render target, and good to go. To my understanding, obviously it will be much more difficult to have it. Anyway, let's not talk about not existing features. So this PBR IBR thing. And this will provide you the output G buffer, which has that is the 7th. So, which has obviously the albedo, which is just a pure diffuse color, normals, velocity and UV map. So if I on the camera you can see, but for any effects requiring you to, any post effects requiring you to draw textures on it, you can absolutely do so. Probably like post-process decals. But to be perfectly honest, I haven't met any vvvv person who needed post-process decals yet. But the time might come. And then roughness, metalness currently. And obviously the depth buffer, and then the stencil buffer. The stencil buffer just takes care of not processing undrawn pixels like the sky here. You have a little skybox thing, which just takes care of that, and and then your regular post-processing shenanigans, which basically very simple stuff. I don't know if you guys want me to go into tone mapping. I don't think so. Currently, it's a priority. I mean, you should do that. I mean, if I disable it, it will just look rubbish.
What implementation do you have options for choosing different kinds?
Yes. So currently, I have. Oops.
Is the lighting linear? Or can you do linear lighting?
It is, the lighting is linear, so that's why you need the tone mapping as well.
Yeah.
Where is this? Oh, there you go. List. There you go. So it has these tone mapping algorithms that you can choose from, and all the parameters for those. My favorite is the Uncharted 2 algorithm. It's quite famous, and I didn't crave for better, so I stuck with it. There's an auto exposure thingy going on as well. You can have it. So if I set it to 10, it would calculate, and you can see that like stronger light. So for example, a very big very strong skylight can also get this color bleeding to kind of extreme. So this thing there started to blink, which means the recording might finish in any moment. Well, then I hope it will be still good for half an hour. So if you turn it low, then the exposure would adjust. And there's a couple of settings for the exposure to take care of, like the minimum, maximum lightness. You take sensitivity and all sorts of jazz. And then after the tone mapping, you have the glare to take care of the little like bloom. And unfortunately, because this is deferred pipeline, anti-aliasing is again hard nut to implement. It's not impossible. I actually know the method how to do it, but then it's just time to implement it and develop for it for third parties is kind of more. It's not as simple. So if you want to write shaders for this one just requires 4 render targets, and that is lit. I mean, the lit is the albedo. I don't know why it's called lit. Normal, velocity and UV map, and rough metal, or in other say material. And there is another version of PBR IBL which is currently not working, which would support anisotropic anisotropic lighting as well with environment maps, if anyone would need it. But then the shader should also cope with that, which it does because it has it in a defined 10 targets. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that is the current pipeline. After the break, we will have a look at other graphics other graphics implementation to render FBX for Vivid. Like I tried to work with the Superphone yesterday, and we will do that. And Super Physical now is getting a lot of hype, but to be perfectly honest, I don't think that is scalable yet. However, Michael Burke is working on it very good, so it might be a very viable option sooner or later. Okay, what else I skipped? Yes, I haven't talked about how to actually skin yet, or how the skinning works. But before I do that, you might notice that the camera nodes are kind of weird, and that is because I have my own set of camera modules, which allows you to use any control scheme, and this kind of modular in a sense that it can accept any device or any behavior with the camera delta special pin. So that's why I can use the mouse and the space navigator at the same time for the camera without writing a special camera module to have it in there. Okay. Let's see, what else should I cover? Oh, this is...
Do you support OpenEXR or HDR files for environment maps?
I personally don't support it, but CVImagePack does. And for that, there is a little wrapper module called File Texture DX11 HDR in mp.dx, which, if I would have ImagePack installed, would just... Oh wait, I do have ImagePack installed as texture. It just looks like it haven't been updated to the new DX11 interfaces. So currently, no. Yeah, as soon as someone will edit the interface and it will be available on OpenEXR. Yeah, simple versions of OpenEXR, not custom channels and not deep pixels and all, so not these, just the HDR, RGB, single channel OpenEXRs. I mean, a single RGB channel OpenEXRs. But yeah, DDS is supported out of the box in DirectX 11, and it's just a faster way to do it, and a less convoluted way to. You have to install less packs for that. Okay. So that is done. Let's talk a little bit about skinning. And I will launch the girls again. Oh, yeah. I will immediately close it because I got to my mind that you guys might want to have the camera from a 3D package imported as well. I have good news for you and slightly bad news for you if you want to do that. Just do this. So the good news is you can absolutely do so in with single node rigid transforms. The bad news is there is no way currently to have the projection transform and other camera data inside vvvv. which is kind of shame. Same. Sorry, it's a shame.
This is a matter of time, or it is something that you are not bothered to do?
Sorry?
This is a matter of time to be done? I mean, to have the projection matrices?
It is the simplest thing on earth, probably, to implement it, but I just didn't bother yet because I had more important things to do, more important issues to fix. And to be perfectly honest, I still have more important issues to fix. So where are these city?
It took me like a minute to load it.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's filling bones. What on earth? Okay, this might be not good. Let's just stop that. Oh, okay. So it is loading the wrong FBX file. Again, I was messing it up yesterday. Sorry about the inconvenience. That is someone else's thing, but I think it is from 0376.
It's actually running for them through the.
Sorry?
It's running for them through the file that I've done.
Okay. Okay, but and in there it was the. Okay, yeah, I will just load your thing then as well. So you supplied them the tidied up city. Okay. And it has the city then. Okay, yeah, that's sure. Yeah, this looks much more comprehensible. So let's reload it. As you can see, the camera animation is already loaded before the meshes. Yada yada yada, it's filling the vertices. I wonder if the blinking of this other media, it says storage low. Is it warning me that there's not too much time left, or it's warning me that it is out of storage? So in this very case, I might just lower this to a little bit more. Comprehensible level. Oh, someone likes straight lines. So here, Boris done a very good job at making this tidy. He can do the rest of it. Rest of the patches. So currently, to get camera working, you just deal with it with any other rigid transformations. I should have said this on the rigid transformation part of the workshop yet. But as you can see here, it's not important to have it in regex because it's right in the root nodes, on the node hierarchy. So I can just write it out and then have the transform, have some sort of uniform scale here, inverse it, and boom, done. You have an animated camera right next to it, so you don't have to wait for me until I do that camera expanding node to have a proper view projection matrices out of it. So this is how you would do that. And this city asset is provided to me by Antokio for testing exactly this thing. So, and because this is the tidiest patch, you might be using it to kind of reference how to work with this this system I have had. Okay, now to skinning. It's sorry I always shut down vvvs, but it's kind of a bad habit for me. Let's just get this away. Here as well. So it's a bad habit for me that I usually trust it more to load up correctly if I always restart it. Okay, unreloaded. So everything actually explained in this patch. If you missed something from the workshop, and then yeah. So skinning wise, what is happening is you have to provide the skeletal mesh the entire node hierarchy in transforms. So because skeletal mesh will select the node the proper node matrices inside internally. We don't have to think about which matrices are used by the meshes. So to have that, after you have the skeleton, which you can transform obviously, or which you can modify before sending it over to the skinning part of the skeletal mesh. So to get that, you provide a bone size set, so the skeletal mesh knows about the how much bone it has for one instance, and then you provide all of the transforms into structured buffers, so it can read it off the GPU. And basically this is how simple it is to get it running. I don't know if I covered it before. Okay, yeah, so yeah. And so it is question time for the first part. Oh yeah, there's one thing very important regarding PBR IBL. There is this PBR IBL stencil node, which takes care of getting the right reference and depth stencil render state to the layer. Without it, you won't be able to see your results inside PBR IBL. Why does it have window handle? So yeah, now it is for the first part, it is question time. Does anybody have questions regarding the whole thing, or in more terms, was I clear and followable on this first part? Nobody?
You have a list of features that your pipeline supports and doesn't support?
Yeah, I think I have scattered around, but it doesn't support dynamic lighting yet, but not in the deferred path. I have on the next part we will develop our own shade. We will convert the shader to cope to work with materials, which is implementing the Disney or principled BRDF, and that will have dynamic lighting, but it doesn't have shadows yet. Which I have a plan how to do one which actually looks right, and it kind of avoid the jagged look with the regular shadow map, but that's for the future. It's still in planning phase. And which scope you mean? You mean the rendering pipeline, what it supports?
Yeah, like if there's depth of field or things like that.
For depth of field, I have a plan to convert the one which is coming from Reshade, which is actually a pretty solid one with proper bokeh. But again, it's not there yet. It will be there after NODE17. And yeah, for all these post-processed things, there will be that will be in a separate world or separate kind of category. So that's not so that those post-processed things won't be actually. If you have a look, so here, for example, we have motion blur. If we, I don't know, look at the skirt, you might be able to see it, which is kind of aggressive right now, maybe a little bit too aggressive. So even the motion blur here is kind of a separate thing, because it just awaits a velocity map and the depth. So it's not tied to PBR IBL here. Everything which is tied to PBR IBL is actually inside it, but with a couple of exceptions. So like the MX AO.
So everything coming out of that is linear, so you have to do the mapping afterwards in the post process?
Yes, this is linear. This is.
Do you expect linear stuff going in, or do you take care of that?
Sorry, the what?
So like, if I make a material and I specify a color, are you expecting that color to be linear?
Yes, and that color should be linear. And yeah, so this is providing this 16-bit per channel floating point. What you call it? Format, texture format. But if you like, you can obviously raise it. I was just using 16 bits precision because it usually is enough, and it is not as hard on filling rate as 32 bits per channel on the GPU. So okay. And then obviously you have this FXA, which is coming with DirectX 11. Okay, I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover in the first part. So if there are no more questions, you are free to go to have lunch.